Welcome to a podcast about Catholic things. This is Eric, the ambassador of common sense, and I'm here with
Dan, the ambassador of nonsense. Welcome, everyone.
This is like a record. We've recorded.
I know, four consistently in a row. Well, you know,
happens.
I'll tell you, it could be that the time that we've picked to do this just works better. I know that for my part, it's like when 8:30 rolls around, I'm thinking, sheesh, yeah. I hope he says he can't do it because I don't want to get up and do it. Because I'm, sitting in my room watching TV, and then, when it doesn't take very much for me to get into a momentum. It's like once it's like, okay, I guess we're doing it, and then in 30 seconds I'm into it and I'm fine, So it works out really well time wise for me.
The funny thing is, like when I'm in the morning, when I'm taking a shower and thinking to myself what I want to say, I'm all excited about it. I'm like, oh yeah, I can say that, and I need to say this. And usually I forget most of the stuff I'm thinking of, but in the mornings I'm always excited about it. And then by the time I get out of work, I'm kind of like, I just want to lay down and veg or something.
Yeah.
But I
did a bunch of stuff too,
today instead.
But doing mornings for me would mean like 5:30 in the morning. So I don't think you want to do that.
No, I don't want to do that.
Okay.
I'm not a friend of 5:30 in the morning. Let's see. Last week we talked about pornography addiction and basically went over what it is, kind of how you can tell if you've got a problem or if someone else has a problem. But I think we should go all the way here and talk about, I guess, first of all, avoiding the problem. Right. And second of all, some of the steps you can take. Because it's not like anyone's going to listen to this and be like, oh, I'm cured of pornography addiction.
But yeah, right. And
there are some things you have to do.
Let's be clear here. If you're viewing pornography, it's a problem. When we say you have a problem, we mean that it's beyond a mere temptation that you give into. We're talking about it being something that you no longer have the willpower to resist the piece by piece temptations that come along. But there's never a situation where pornography is not a problem.
Right. And if you look at it and decide you want to quit and try to stop looking at it and you continue to look at it, then you've got a bigger problem.
Right.
I guess, first of all, let's talk about avoiding the whole thing altogether. I don't think there's a lot of people that'll help, but it is a jumping off point because most guys by now have either looked at it and kind of developed a habit or not looked at it and didn't develop a habit. But I don't know if there's young men out there who are getting their taste of freedom for the first time and suddenly find themselves looking at it more and more. There are a few things they ought to do.
And there's a book. There's a jumping off point right there that I can make that things can quickly devolve. Okay. I won't use any names, and I don't think anybody will be able to go back and find any records that would reveal names. So I'm just going to say this. The guy that I roomed with my first year of college was somebody that I knew prior, and we both went to the same school. We decided to go ahead and room together, and he had gone like the week before or like, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks before, whatever it was, because he was on the football team, and he had gone, because they were in training and stuff like that. And so when I got there and mom and dad took me all out, and we all had dinner and stuff, and they dropped me off. Okay, so then like first or second night that we're there, and he's like, we're just kind of chatting. He says, it doesn't this kind of like, you're kind of like on your own and you're free to just do what you want. Doesn't it kind of make you want to do something? And I said, well, yeah, I don't know, I guess. And he said, yeah, like order Penthouse. So he had ordered a subscription to Penthouse.
Oh, because
that was his, yeah. And it tied it like exactly what you were saying, young man, and you're kind of on your own, and you've got this sort of freedom that you might want to explore a little bit. Well, here's the thing. I don't think it was even, I want to say, Christmas yet, not even halfway through the year. And this guy had, like, I don't know, every kind of, like, filthy mag that, beyond Penthouse, like, stacked up in his closet and stuff. It's like it just like avalanched, that. So yeah, I mean, right at the beginning, if you're thinking, hey, I can do this, out of a sense of some kind of freedom, boy, that's a big warning sign. That's a big red flag. Stop there and say, hey, wow, I've got this freedom. Pick something else to go do with your freedom. I don't have to answer to anybody. I can, I don't know, go volunteer your time at the church or something,
Yeah. That is the thing. It develops really quickly. But I think, but most guys, when they look at it, it's not so much because of wanting to express their freedom or experience their freedom. A lot of times it's just flat out lust.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, Jesus was pretty clear on how to fight lust. And that's at the beginning when you think of a woman.
That's right.
It's really not much harder than that. Mm-hmm. Just don't think about it. You shouldn't be thinking about women that way. If you don't think about women that way, you won't get trapped in some kind of addiction like that, because it'll be out of your mind. Right. There's a book by Stephen, what's his name? Hold on. Stephen Arterburn and Fred Stoker. Okay. It's a Protestant book that is used by Protestant pornography support groups a lot. Mm-hmm. And he talks a lot about eye bouncing, and I kind of grabbed onto that phrase because
so what does he mean by it?
So you can't help seeing women.
Right.
You're going to see them all the time.
The total aspect of a woman. Right.
The point is to look away when you see one that causes, that gives you interest, and to look away right away.
Okay. Yeah.
And the idea is that it creates a habit, a physical habit.
Right.
And it's
right. It's what Catholics would have called custody of the eyes.
Right. But most guys, most of us are already in the habit. When you see a woman, you turn to her.
Yeah.
Not away from her.
And it's a natural habit to do that, in the sense that we're kind of wired to want to see women.
But creating I'm trying to think of the word. It's a biological, neurological pathway in your brain that you kind of program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that the sight of a woman gives you an immediate reaction that you don't have to think about anymore.
Right.
Once you develop, and it usually
you develop it into a reflex, actually.
Right. And if you start doing it consciously, you'll find out that it takes about a month to 2 months to develop that as a habit. But once you do develop it as a habit, your life gets a whole lot easier. There's another book by Drek Masters that's more Catholic, that talks about that, and it's actually the first part of conquering a pornography addiction. It really starts there, when you're out on the street, you see women, bounce your eyes away quickly, because developing that habit it'll help. Even if you do have an addiction already, it'll help cure that addiction, because it'll be on your mind less.
Right. And while you're developing the habit, you're training the physical reaction, but you're also training the intention, because there's a reason that you're doing that. And it's on the one hand, it's not, you've got to cultivate this mindset, cultivate this mindset. Okay, yeah, you might be doing it as a habit if you've already got a addiction, and you might be thinking, okay, the reason I'm doing this is because I need to break this addiction. But this should be something that young men are developing as a habit anyway. That basically any woman that isn't a friend that they're seeing in friendship or in some kind of whether it's a work colleague or something like that, any woman that they would tend to look at for her physical characteristics, they ought to be cultivating that idea of turning away. And the reason is out of respect for women. And so you're also cultivating that intention of having respect for women.
Jason and I did a podcast, I can't remember, it was a couple years ago, but we talked about Catholic sex. And the approach to sex
that sounds funny
is
when you
better
say
if it's
sex.
Catholic. Huh?
I said it sounds funny when you say it that way, Catholic sex.
Yeah. The thing is, you'll find that sex itself is much better if you take the Catholic approach.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Another big part of avoiding it is just common sense things like putting your computer in a place where other people can see you while you're on it.
Right. And once upon a time, that was an easy aspect of the solution. Okay, we have a family computer. Put it in a public part of the house. Well, these days, everybody has a tablet or a laptop, and you just, close it up and schlep off to wherever with it. Okay, well, you've got to develop some rules for yourself then. If that's a source of temptation for you.
It's even a part of a lot of people's bedtime routine. They lay in bed and either read from an iPad or they just watch YouTube while they're laying there until they fall asleep.
Right.
If that does seem to be a temptation, you got to stop that. You just got to make the rule. I'm not going to
find something else.
Look at it.
Pick up a paper book. Make that your bedtime routine or something. Find something to replace it. You can still have the physical routine, but do it in a way that it can't turn into that temptation. And then at that point, if you've got that, it's like, well, if you're saying, well, instead of reading this book, I'm going to go get my tablet so that I can watch another YouTube video. All right, now what you're doing is setting up an excuse for yourself. Well, that can be your red flag, and it might be easier to resist that than once you've already got it right in front of you and it's a few clicks away or whatever.
The thing is, if you do have an addiction, and I'm involved with a group that was just recently started here in Cincinnati to help men with that problem.
Oh, no kidding.
I was in a Protestant group for about 10 years, and one of the leaders there too, but I couldn't get the Archbishop to start one here in Cincinnati. And I wanted the Archbishop's blessing on it before I did it. So we did actually just recently start that about a half a year ago. But of all the men that I've talked to with this problem, there is one rule that every guy I've talked to who made that his rule and stuck with it pretty much kicked the habit. At least, a lot of these rules you make for yourself, and then if you get better at whatever you're attempting, you tend to bend the rules a little bit, and people slip back into old habits. But if you're really at a point where you got to make a hard stop and you got to do whatever you can to get out of that habit, eliminating electronic entertainment, unless you're with another person. So
okay. So if you're going to watch TV, you're up with your wife watching TV. She goes to sleep, TV goes off, that kind of stuff.
Right. And then, you get on the computer. A lot of people like forums. People used to like forums. People don't really go to forums anymore.
Everybody posts pictures on Facebook instead of going to forums.
Yeah, Facebook has taken its place. I don't think a whole lot. I see the guys I hang around with are never on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's a girl thing or not.
I don't know.
Or
I'm
if it's
hardly
more
ever on
of a girl
Facebook.
thing.
The only time I ever go on Facebook is when I write something on my blog, and then I'll say, okay, I'm going to go post this on Facebook. And I log in, I post it, and I get off. That's the only time I'm on Facebook.
I don't even when we post these podcasts, usually I post it on the Facebook page. I usually don't even look to see if there are any responses. For all I know, nobody even sees them.
Oh, yeah. Well,
but
okay. So anyway, right.
You do a lot of entertaining yourself on the computer. It's become most people's chief source of entertainment. Well, if it was a computer. Nowadays, it's just the phone. If you're looking at your phone to keep your mind busy or to entertain yourself, that's the kind of thing you would want to stop and only use your phone when you have to communicate, or, you're looking up something on Google real quick to answer a question, things like that.
Right.
But stopping that as a source of entertainment is, everyone I've talked to who has done that had great success with it.
That makes a lot of sense, because that's the one source of entertainment that it's, access to. Smut is like just,
Yeah.
It's right there.
And we talked about ritualization last week. Mm-hmm. And that's a huge part of the ritual. You get on your phone and you say, I'm just going to respond to some people on Facebook or look through these forums. And somehow that's part of the ritual to get to another website that you shouldn't be on. And for most guys, that is part of the ritual. And once you picked out your phone to look at something, you've already spiraling, and where it's going to end up.
That's right. That makes sense. So cut out electronic entertainment cut out electronics as a source of entertainment, unless you're with someone that you're
doing it together.
Just engaging in, then it's, So if you're watching a family movie, or if you and your wife are watching a movie or something like that, that's different then.
We talked about controlling your eyes, but another big part of it, because men have such vivid imaginations, another part is just controlling your thoughts.
The mind's eye.
And I know that sounds difficult. It's like, don't think pink. And it's almost impossible then to not think pink. But it's really not that hard.
Is think something else.
Yeah, think blue.
Right.
And if you have a ready set of things that you can think about, it's just like Jones. And if you're you want to drink or you want to smoke weed or whatever it is that you're having a problem with, you get a craving. And if you busy yourself, busy your hands, busy your mind, it goes away. It doesn't take that long to make it go away.
Right.
So if you have a set of things that you can think about as kind of an emergency plan that will keep your mind busy, you'll find that it's not hard not to think pink.
And I have a suspicion. And maybe you've even run into this, and with guys that you've helped or whatever, but I have a suspicion that it doesn't take that long to get past a craving or a temptation for this kind of stuff. Now if it's, you compare it to like chemical things like marijuana or alcohol, and those, because there's a maybe a different kind of physical component, might not be the case. But when it comes to pornography, I have a feeling it doesn't take that long to get past it. If you can find something to do for 5 minutes, that's probably enough.
And most guys are pretty easily distracted from things.
Yeah.
Walk
out in the garage.
I talked to one guy who carried around math problems in his pocket.
Well, there's a way to do it.
He would pull them out of his pocket, try to figure out a math problem in his head without writing anything down. And even though he never solved the math problems, within a minute or two, he had forgotten all about it, and he's thinking about something else now.
But you know what?
It doesn't take long.
Doesn't have to be math problems either. Carry around a pocket Sudoku or a pocket crossword or something if that's the kind of thing that could help you. Or, like I said, have a ready list of projects around the house, because usually you're at home with these kinds of things, temptations and stuff would hit. Have a ready list of projects that you can say, all right, I'm going to go to this place and start planning how I would do this project. Whether it's organizing your garage or your basement, or if you'd really like to kind of replan how your kitchen works, or if you know that, if you're going to have to replace your toilet soon or whatever it is, start working stuff out. Or, I need to build some shelves in the living room or something. Let me start taking some measurements. Just spend 5 minutes doing some of the preparatory work for a project.
Yeah. If you find projects that you can only spend 5 minutes, like I'm going to clean out my desk.
And right.
Basically pull out one drawer, clean out half the drawer. By the time you get halfway through a drawer, you're not thinking about it anymore.
No, you're thinking about all the stuff.
Oh, you know what's good?
And how to organize and what's that?
A Rubiks Cube.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can get instructions for how to solve them online. Yeah. And once you start trying to solve it, then eventually you will solve it and you'll know how. Right. And from then on, if you have a problem, you just pick up the Rubiks Cube,
mix
it
once,
and
then
you're
solve it. Yeah, that's your 5 minutes. Unless you happen to be one of those stupid geniuses who can do it in 27 seconds.
I hate those people.
I've never run into one, but my son has.
I saw on a video, this little kid, the guy messed up the Rubik's Cube, some little Oriental kid. Mm-hmm. He sat there and stared at it for 2 minutes, and then they blindfolded him, and he solved it.
Oh, blindfolded! Wow. I was going to say 2 minutes is a long time, but yeah.
And it wasn't like 6 or 7 moves. It was the amount of moves it usually takes to solve one.
Oh, so it wasn't like the optimal solution. It was, wow, that's interesting.
Right. It was randomly messed up, and this kid stared at it for a few minutes and then just solved it with the blindfold on.
My son knew someone when I think it's somebody that he knew who was part of the touring group he did with Blue Lake, the performing arts. He went to Europe and did a concert tour, and I think it was somebody on that tour. But he was one of those who you hand him a randomly messed up Rubik's Cube. He spends 10 to 15 seconds staring at it, and then in 30 seconds he's got it solved.
That's insane.
Yeah. So anyway, if you're that kind of person, pick something other than a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, whatever. We hate you anyway. Another big part of getting out of the addiction is getting rid of crap in your home and around you physically that kind of brings that stuff to mind. I mean, if you have a problem, then it's time to say clean up. Well, see, it used to be you would go through your DVDs or videotapes and get rid of stuff that shouldn't be there. It's a little different now because most people have just subscriptions. So it's whatever.
It's like, if you want to go onto Amazon Prime and you can find any kind of movie almost.
But things on there are things around your house that probably cause some sort of temptation for you. You get rid of that stuff.
So let me ask this: Does it work? Okay, getting rid of the things that lead into that. That's one thing. Does it work at all for people to say, not only am I going to get rid of this stuff, but I'm going to place around the house, reminders of sacred things, pictures of, the Blessed Virgin and crucifixes in certain rooms and, things that create an atmosphere of, because, you wouldn't sit in church, for example, and leaf through a Playboy magazine or something like that.
Right.
Even if you were going to do it, you'd say, well, I can't do it here. Does it work for people to create that atmosphere in their homes? I mean, have you talked to anybody who's tried that?
Yeah, because that used to be always the first thing I would talk about. And more than one person has explained it to me this way. By the time you're in that spiral, you're not looking at the objects. You're not.
Oh, okay.
You no longer see the pictures of Mary or the crucifix, and it doesn't really do much.
Okay.
However, wearing a scapular.
Oh, because it's like on you. It's physical. It's like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because you wouldn't want to do that with that on.
Right.
And then there's an action there. You have to take it off. Which
itself is, that's a step.
It makes you shame. Yeah. And so.
Right.
I
guess that's part of the thing, isn't it? Is the more you can create those extra steps that you have to take. Yeah. Every one of those steps is an opportunity to turn back.
Right. And in some cases, I mean, I don't think things like filtering software, I personally don't think they really work at all.
Mm-hmm. Even by way of just making it, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to turn off the filter, and even that doesn't... Right. Okay.
I think that creating the extra step does make you think a little bit. It's not going to... It doesn't go very far, but it is an extra step if you have to put in the password because you're not supposed to be on that website.
Right.
We talked about the ritualization and about the fact that often the act itself is no longer sexual, and it's
right.
The things that drive you to it are often not sexual.
Right.
So for a lot of guys, that's what you would call a trigger. For a lot of guys, you gotta find out what your trigger is. Mm-hmm. What kinds of things trigger you? And I've heard all kinds of them. Fighting with your wife, money problems, which a lot of those you can't do anything about anyway.
Right.
But you got to find a way to not have that trigger you. You have to find a way to make that do something else. And again, like you said, having hobbies or having some kind of way to take your mind off the triggers or off whatever stress that might be causing you to, not causing you, but leading you.
Leading it, yeah, right. So what about, I don't know how often these, because when you have it, when it's ritualized like that, like you said, there's triggers, but I imagine that a lot of times the so-called trigger is a predictable, regularly occurring thing, like part of a evening routine or something like that.
Right.
So does it ever work? Also. Does it work to try to replace the ritual and develop, it's like, okay, I'm not going to wait until I'm tempted, and then because I'm tempted, I'm going to do this other thing instead. Instead, what I'm going to do is establish a ritual of every evening at this time, I'm going to do this thing that's going to lead me into a different place than where the, my bad habit ritual is laid. Does that work for people?
Yeah. Yeah. You set up new routines that are going to, for example, an alcoholic, goes by a certain, say drugstore on his way home every night, and he always stops there and buys the alcohol. And it's almost to the point where he can't even go on that street anymore because he knows he's going to end up in the drugstore or the liquor store or whatever to buy, whatever. But he could, reform some kind of routine where if he has to pass that way on the way home, maybe he, stops at somewhere else and does something else. Stop at the church, go in and say a prayer, and then go home. Things like that.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, creating a new ritual to replace the old one, but with that has better habits involved.
Right.
With all this stuff, these are all things that you would do, but for the most part, if you've tried stuff before to stop and you haven't stopped, it is time that you get some help.
So what does help look like? Because I know it, like, for example, people who are alcoholics, they can find Alcoholics Anonymous. If people who are like massively addicted to drugs, if they can manage to get into one, there are dry out programs and, hospitalizations and stuff like that. What does help look like for
you can even find
pornography addiction?
You can find pornography dry out for rehab. I don't think that's necessary. I think, or that it works. I mean, but if you're rich, I guess you could do that.
Well, it's like you pay someone to lock you up for 2 months.
Yeah, you check into a place, a hospital or something. They exist.
No kidding.
But one thing is counseling. Again, a lot of that depends on money. But there are groups that like Sexaholics Anonymous.
Okay.
I think that's the name of it.
You said that
there are SA groups.
Right. You said you formed one for the diocese. Like within the diocese, what's that one called?
Clean of Heart.
Okay.
But the place I've gone to before that was Celebrate Recovery.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And there are usually Celebrate Recovery groups in just about every city.
So that's a big one. That's like Alcoholics Anonymous.
Right. But it is for anyone with any kind of addiction or hang up.
Oh, could be gambling or whatever.
Right. So you'll meet a lot of different people in those places, but you'll find more and more there are pornography addicts in those places.
I see. Okay.
There seem to be a lot of them. I think that's probably one of the better ones because they separate the men from the women when they go through their.
Because if women are talking about pornography addiction, that's just titillation.
I can't imagine a guy wanting to talk about that in front of a woman.
Well, no, and if he's listening
or if he
to a
does,
woman, it's a turn on. And if a
yeah.
woman's talking about it, he's getting turned on by that. That's the wrong kind of atmosphere.
Certainly, yeah. It's not so much the group. It's two things happen. You meet people in the group. Mm-hmm. And you become friends with them, and you have accountability partners.
Okay.
And or mentors.
Right.
So someone, you might report to your group every week and say, yes, I did well, no, I did poorly. But if you've, over the weeks, you've kind of grown to like this guy, and you guys seem to hit it off pretty good, you call each other at the end of each day.
Mm-hmm.
Or in those cases where, I don't know, you're feeling some kind of temptation and you call them then and say, hey, I'm not doing too well.
And if neither of you are alcoholics, you might call them and say, hey, can we go out for a drink?
Right. Having an accountability partner is probably the biggest thing that'll help.
Okay.
Having someone you can report to
mm-hmm.
and someone who will say, well, why'd you do that? And maybe call you out on things like, well, even though you didn't do it this time, you shouldn't have been watching that show. It's a bad show. You're going to end up going down the wrong hole. So
I see.
I think out of all the things we've talked about, having an accountability partner is probably the biggest thing. Which
an accountability partner
for a lot of guys, that's scary.
It's
if your addiction is a secret, well, how do you go find an accountability partner if you're kind of stuck in this by yourself and you're alone?
Yeah. Well, and what I'm thinking is that, okay, for Catholic guys, all right, when you sin, you go and confess to a priest. But the thing is, maybe some guys are at the point where their confessions are lists of failures to avoid near occasions of sin, right? We have
mm-hmm.
that in our act of contrition. I solemnly, I forget how we even word it, but anyway,
to avoid the near occasion
of sin, right? Okay, so typically, if you failed to avoid a near occasion of sin, but you didn't actually sin, you generally wouldn't go confess that. Sounds like.
Right.
An accountability partner, you are confessing that. You're kind of holding yourself accountable to all of the habits that could lead to the behavior, not just when you failed.
Right. And it's one of those things where you know you've got a time that you have to talk to that person. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as things might progress in a bad direction, you kind of keep that in mind, thinking, well, I'm going to have to tell him that I did this today. And he's going to say, well, that was kind of, not going to yell. It's not like you got to yell at each other or anything, but it's just kind of calling each other out on things. It's like,
right. You know, you shouldn't have done that. And how are you going to avoid that next time? And
right. What are you going to do right now to make sure that doesn't happen again? Things like that.
So let me ask this. Have you run into guys who have, you know, because you've helped out in these groups, are there guys who have managed to, let's say, get their wives involved and make their wives their accountability partner, or does that just not work?
That never works. I've talked to guys who have tried that route, but it doesn't work because of a whole lot of different reasons, and it's not always the same reasons. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I talked to one guy, he was going to do that, but he ended up kind of not doing it because he would just lie to his wife because he didn't want her to know because she made such a huge deal of it.
Oh, okay. So, is the wife going to have the right kind of accountability support? And then if he's always, you know, especially if somebody's already in this addicted state, if he's, you know, she might get to thinking like, you know, man, wow, you know, you look at all of this stuff. What you must not like what I have to offer, or something like that. It could hurt the relationship, and I could see that going in a lot of different bad directions.
To be honest, I think, well, two things. First of all, it's not fair to put the wife in that position.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And second of all, she's not going to understand. Women don't understand men. They just don't.
Yeah. And you know what?
The same way we don't understand them.
I was going to say, I bet conversely, and for the same reasons but in different ways, it probably wouldn't work for a woman to use her husband as an accountability.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, I've talked to some men who tried it that route, and it's like their wives would listen to them and then just say okay, and then never talk about it again, and never really even call them out on things.
Not
and it's
hold
like
them accountable. Yeah,
I guess that obvious that she doesn't even want to hear about it.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I'll do my duty to listen, but I don't want to talk through it. Yeah, that I could see that being a problem too, because because you're talking about someone that you're asking to hold you accountable without making it personal, I guess, is a way to think about it. You know, so like if I've got an accountability partner, Marvin, I want Marvin to hold me accountable, but at the same time, Marvin's not being personally hurt by my actions.
Yeah.
You know,
but when you look at pornography, you're violating your wife.
That's true. Yeah. And your wife is
violating
being hurt.
the marriage.
It's impossible for her not to be hurt by that.
Even if, I mean, I guess there are some cases where wives don't care, and there are cases, I've talked to guys whose wives, were part of the
addiction problem.
Were engaged in pornography with their wives.
Right.
But like it or not, if you're looking at pornography, you are violating the marriage.
Yeah,
and,
whether she's with you or not. Yeah.
So it it never works out.
So, okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to, because, at some point, we have talked about a lot of the physical, psychological, and maybe a little bit on the emotional, but part of the reason for all of this, I mean, when you talk about, things like alcohol and other stuff like that, it ruins lives. But many of the other things that fall into this category are things that are in and of themselves not evil, sinful, and so forth. Gambling, drinking, and so forth. Pornography is at a different class by itself. And so it seems to me that in addition to all of this, and maybe there's more to talk about, and we should if you've got more to say, but in addition to all of this, there's a spiritual dimension that has to come into play here at some point.
It definitely does. And I mean, look, I guess for 15 years now, I've been listening to men talk about what it did to them. Mm-hmm. And every single one of them talks about living a double life and hating that side of themselves.
Okay. So
there's the fear of being caught doing it.
Right.
And kind of living in a constant state of looking over your shoulder. And that paranoia kind of creeps into the rest of your life, where it's not just about the pornography, you're just paranoid. Or you're scared of things that normally you wouldn't be scared of. You wouldn't even
care about. I see. Yeah.
It does all kinds of things to people. And of course it does ruin lives because I talked to one guy who got fired because of it.
Oh, he was doing it at work?
Yeah. He's doing it at work. He got caught. He got fired.
Yeah. That goes to that.
That's an embarrassing conversation to have with your wife. I got fired.
And, but, that goes because, if you're getting fired for doing that at work, it's because there's some kind of policy. And if there's some kind of policy, we talked last time about the stages of addiction, and the one stage being the final stage where you're doing things that you would not normally do. It's like you can't even, okay, let's say that you do view it. Let's suppose you don't even particularly, see it as a problem yet, but you can't wait till you get home. You got to do it while you're at work.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
You're in pretty bad shape.
Yeah.
Okay. I've talked to two men who had this happen to them, and I can't tell you whether or not they're being honest with me. I kind of think they are being honest with me, but it could be they're not. If you search for pornography, you will find child pornography. Even if you try not to find child pornography, you will find it. Oh,
because it's all of a
because it's there. Piece. When you search for pictures, they come up, and all kinds of things come up. Mm-hmm. It appears on your screen, put it that way.
Right.
Once it appears on your screen, it is in your computer.
Right, now, because your system caches all the images and that kind of web browsers are built that way. Right.
And a lot of those websites are monitored by the FBI. I've talked to two men who have had the FBI show up at their house and almost convict them of viewing child pornography because they had landed on this or that site.
Even though that wasn't what they were intending to do.
Right.
Wow. That would be another awkward conversation with your wife, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's the FBI, I mean, gosh, you got
to explain that one in court.
In court to your wife. What about your kids?
Yeah, it's. I mean, some very serious things happen because of pornography addiction, and it does destroy lives. Yeah, and most wives do care if their husbands are looking at pornography. Not all of them.
Yeah,
but most of them do, especially if you're in a Catholic marriage. Your wife should care.
Yeah, it's her duty to care
and to find out. I've talked to men who have spent 4 hours per day just looking at pornography.
Wow,
that's a lot of time.
Man,
I mean,
wow.
That time could be spent doing so many other things.
I was going to say, especially when you think of what could be accomplished in that time. That's a lot more than cleaning out a desk drawer.
Yeah. Yeah, that by then you're talking about relationships that you should be putting time into and are not. Mm-hmm. So whether you want to admit it or not, you've got relationships failing because you're not giving them enough attention with your kids or with your wife.
Right.
But I would go back and stress that if you're having a problem, you're probably not going to get out of it until you find a way to talk with other men about it, or at least one other man,
and probably
who can,
you point out, okay, it doesn't do to just, if you've reached that point where it's an addiction, it doesn't do to just talk to your wife about it, but you probably have to tell your wife about it.
Yeah, you are going to have to come clean eventually.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, this is kind of an awkward thing. She deserves to know, in the sense that she owns you. You are not your own. The two become one flesh, and your body belongs to her, and that includes your eyes and your mind.
You're giving away something that's rightfully hers.
Yeah. And so that's, it seems to me that
I would
almost
not,
has to be...
however, suggest the first thing you do is just run out and tell your wife. I mean, you gotta get to a point where you can do that, because there's I don't know. You do have to tell your wife eventually, but it's one of those things where there might be a better time.
So
your wife might be in a position where she just can't handle it.
Oh, right. Yeah, you've got to consider your wife too. That's right. So, but what about your relationship with God? I mean, what kinds of prayer habits can help, get out of this? And what kind of prayer, I guess, not just prayer, but spiritual attitudes? It's like, okay, once, let's say, you start going to meetings. Take an alcoholic. He starts going to Alcoholics Anonymous and he's clean. And, hey, he makes it 3 months, not a drink. And then, boom, he falls. He has a drink. He goes on a bender. And, he's got to have an attitude that allows him to say, oh, I slipped. I need to get back on it and start going to meetings and start building up again. I imagine that that there's a similar kind of experience that men with this addiction go through with regards to pornography. What's the attitude that you have to have?
There's kind of a pattern. By the time someone's going to a meeting, his relationship with God is such that he might know he's loved, but he feels so despicable that every prayer is either asking God for something or begging for forgiveness.
Okay. So he's almost impeded from having a real fruitful relationship with God.
Yeah, I don't think if a guy's got in that mode, I don't think he could have a relationship with God. Not one that's going to fulfill him the way he will be once he conquers it.
I see. Okay.
And that's also something that every single guy I've talked to, that's one of the main things, is their relationship with God, how it was one thing and then it became something else entirely. Something that they couldn't have even imagined existed. Mm-hmm. Is like being colorblind your whole life and then suddenly seeing color.
Ah, right.
That's the kind of thing most men experience once they've gotten into a recovery mode.
I see. Okay. But there's a certain, a recovery has to occur before they're even capable of...
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, so God only gives you the grace that you're able to take.
Right.
And if you're rejecting him constantly, you're not going to be able to take those graces. And so he can't give it to you.
Right. So you dig yourself in, you by this time somebody has dug themselves into a pit where even though it's a drastic spiritual problem, they're not even in a position where they're capable of seeking a spiritual solution to the problem. They really need help.
Right. And you might even be in a state of grace. You look at pornography.
Oh yeah, if you go to confession
every other night,
week, and
you go to confession every week, or even every day, and you're in a state of grace. But that doesn't change the physical, do much for your relationship.
Right, and it's like you said, confession is it's more about begging forgiveness constantly.
Right. It just doesn't, you don't get as much grace from it. And the thing is, you can't heal from it. It's like if you've got a wound and, you can put a Band-Aid on it and start healing. And if you keep cutting open that wound, it's just never going to heal. Right. So, if you keep violating yourself this way and you don't allow God to heal you, you can have it taped over so it's not bleeding all over, but it's going to keep festering until you stop cutting into it.
Right. I see.
Well, I think I've said about everything I wanted to say.
There's a lot there.
Yeah,
we should have warned people. We should have warned people at the beginning that this was going to be another one of those. But, anybody who listened last week, they probably knew we were going to talk about this week.
Right. And, of course, the title of it will indicate that.
That's true. Yeah.
I will link to those 2 books that I mentioned.
Oh, right. And maybe
on the website.
I don't know if any of these groups have websites themselves or if there are resources for guys to reach out to these who are suffering from this, as an addiction.
I can link to the Celebrate Recovery, the Clean the Heart group that I helped start, and a lot of the Catholic ones are actually anonymous.
You got to find them by word of mouth, basically, it sounds like.
Yeah. So our way of communicating to people is through priests who can hand out the cards. But even if they can get to the website, I'll link to the website too. They can get to the website, they can call the number, but there's a vetting process because, and this is why this wouldn't work in a parish, because every parish has that nosy old lady who knows what happens in room B every Wednesday night.
Right, and she's out there, and
so
and
anyone's seen going
cars
there
are in the parking lot, and so on and so forth. Right. So that makes sense.
So it's one of those deals where it really is confidential and anonymous, and we're not allowed to even talk about when the meetings are outside the meetings.
I see.
But I will link to all those groups.
Okay.
About current events, seems like we're still stuck.
Yeah. Did you hear?
Are we ever gonna
you know what liberals remind me of anymore? So Trump, was giving his update and he's talking about how they are finding some chemicals that can kill the virus very quickly, and he's like, okay, good, let's keep on the research and find out whether we can find something that might be applicable and to accomplish along the same lines but not be toxic for humans and whatever it is. I forget the exact wording, but the thing is, so all these liberals jump all over and say that Trump's advocating people inject themselves with Lysol.
I heard that. I didn't.
Do you know? I mean, are they really that stupid? Liberals today are reminding me of the people in the future in Idiocracy, in their inability to just get that's what they remind me of.
Water? Like from the toilet?
Bingo. Exactly. I never saw no plants growing out of no toilet. That's what they remind me of.
If they're that stupid, I'd say so. But nobody can be that stupid. Nobody thinks that Trump thinks you should inject yourself with Lysol.
Exactly. That's my point. It's like, okay, what? So you're like purposely choosing to sound that stupid?
Another thing I hear, like, when you've got teenagers who for some reason want to excuse certain behavior, the kind of stupid arguments they come up with
they have
to try to act as if for some reason they're justified, or for some reason you ought to let this go. Things like that. Those kinds of arguments where it's like, you don't think that, you just want me to think that. I don't know. That's
a good way to put it.
But I'm still working. I'm assuming you're still working.
I am still working. Actually, my company is in a good position. We do, software for medical devices. I've actually worked on software specifically for COVID-19 assays.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So our company is in good shape. I'm not hurting at all, and it pains me to know that there are people who are out there unable to pay their rent and so forth.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd do if I was in that position.
It bothers me. I feel like there's this huge injustice, but it's not happening to me.
Yeah.
But I want to go scream at people because it is happening. It's just, I want to want to sound like it's personal, even though it's not, because it just bothers me so much that there's so many people being hurt by this.
Yeah. And I mean, in a way it is personal, but you know, in the sense that we have duties to each other, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's like abortion. I mean, you know, we got to speak up for people who can't speak up.
Right.
But I was going to go to the Columbus protest, but it's all the way in Columbus, and that's a 2-hour drive, and
right.
I don't really have a car that could make it on my own. So, but it's I don't know what to say. We've already said everything about it.
Yeah.
It's still the same old, same old. It's like country's getting used to it almost.
I know, that's what I mean. People are talking about. They're using the term "the new normal." It's like,
yeah, that's
wait a minute, what?
Terrible.
You're wanting to take the stupid behaviors that we've developed here and turn them into normalized behaviors? That's absurd.
It's like the whole world went crazy.
Yeah.
Now I did buy some cotton masks, which I am tie-dyeing because I like tie-dyeing. So I'm going to sell cotton tie-dyed masks. Even though I think wearing a mask is stupid.
I hope you make some hay on that. That would be awesome.
They announced Joe.
I got.
Go ahead.
Terry found a thing on Bones Coffee, which I like their various coffees, and she got me a sampler for Christmas and stuff like that. But anyway, she found that they're selling like special masks, like they'll put one in free with your coffee order. So I had her go ahead and order some coffee, just in case they have like when I go back to work, if there's a protocol, I can have a Bones Coffee mask.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of the places I go into, I'm not allowed in unless I wear a mask.
Yeah, so you kind of got to have something.
I'll have them with me and can readily sell them to anyone who wanted to buy them. Joe Biden wins the Wyoming caucuses. I don't even know why I don't know why he's not running against anyone.
Yeah, so what does it mean to win? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and he's
so do we think
some kind of interview?
Is he the one who's going to? Do we think he's probably going to be the one, right? So come November, it's going to be Biden and Trump.
I thought Cuomo was going to go for it, but
doesn't seem to be.
I don't know. It's weird.
Unless
they
he's
get him
trying
in
to
these
be like
interviews and he starts rambling, and it's obvious he doesn't know what the heck is going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone's going to run against Trump.
That would be sweet.
It'd be weird, though.
It'd be weird, but
imagine that.
Yeah. It's like
a presidential election where nobody runs.
That would be, yeah.
The Democrats stole the election from the one guy who might have enough enthusiasm behind him to put a dent in Trump's numbers. I'm talking about Bernie Sanders.
Yeah. Which is weird. He's like he's like a relic. He's a dinosaur, both in terms of his thinking and the fact of his age. And yet he's got all these enthusiastic followers. Why didn't the Democrats put him in their front line? I mean, I know how the caucuses work. Everyone who is a hopeful is hoping that they're going to be the one in front line. I know, but if you wanted to, if you wanted to say now's the time for every good man to come to the aid of his party, well, if the Democrats are going to be that good man, it made more sense for them to back Bernie than anyone else.
Right. Except they think, to the Democrats, Bernie is the Trump. It's the liberal Trump.
Okay.
He's anti-establishment.
He's very anti-establishment, but he's full socialist.
Yeah, I know, but a lot of these people don't really care about socialism. They care about holding on to their jobs as irrelevant bureaucrats and stuff like that.
Good point.
And there's talk that he might end some of those things and put in more aggressive socialists. But anyway, Trump announced that, of course, that he's going to end immigration to the United States. I guess that's from everywhere. He's just ending immigration
for the time.
Right.
Yeah. Of course, there's some liberal out there.
Funny thing is,
there's some liberal out there who's saying, Trump's going to stop immigration forever. I'm sure.
The thing is, one of the things he cited was the fact that was for jobs. Mm-hmm. Now, the liberal thing for jobs is that the immigrants take the jobs that no one else wants.
Yeah.
But now that we got 60 million people out of work,
that ain't going to be true.
Those specific jobs need to be there
if
for
it ever
Americans.
Was true. I don't even believe that was ever true.
I know it wasn't true. There's a podcast called Red Pilled America.
Oh yeah, they did a story about that.
Yeah, kind of dove into these two different podcasts actually dove into the whole lie about American immigrants doing the jobs that Americans didn't want to do.
Right.
And they're taking good jobs. They're taking IT jobs. Mm-hmm. Illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
It's, okay. I don't quite understand this. So from the Hubble telescope, we found that there's an interstellar comet.
Okay.
Borisov contains large amounts of carbon monoxide and hydrogen cyanide.
Okay.
The findings suggest that the object was formed in the cold outer region of its planetary system. Why do we think that's not our system? Is that spiraling around? They're saying it's interstellar, meaning it has no planetary system. But then they talk about when I go in and look at more about that comet. Hold on, let me see if I can find it.
I think the reason they say that it's not from our solar system is that it's not in orbit around the sun. It merely passed close to it, and the composition seems to be very different than
heliocentric orbital eccentricity of 3.36. What's an orbital eccentricity? What's a heliocentric orbital eccentricity?
Well, okay, so the eccentricity, you know how things aren't in a perfect circular orbit. Instead,
yeah.
Well, the eccentricity, you can think of it as the amount of stretch in the orbit. Like the more it's stretched out, and comets tend to have a high eccentricity, so they come really, really, really close to the sun, and then they go out really, 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 really far in an extremely stretched elliptical. That's eccentricity. Now, I'm looking at this right now to determine whether this is in orbit, because there's an eccentricity where. And I don't know how to interpret the number as an eccentricity value, but a thing can be in an elliptical orbit, or it can be a thing that passes close to a star or some other gravitational body, and it doesn't have a returning orbit. It actually has what's called a hyperbolic orbit. The path forms a hyperbola. Yeah. Now, I don't know whether this Borisov is one of those.
Well, I guess it is, because they're saying it's interstellar. It was one of the first interstellar comets ever found.
Okay.
It was the first, I think.
So they're thinking that it developed in another solar system, which, because of the composition of the gases, it seems to be like it couldn't have developed in ours, and then was somehow kicked out of orbit around that star and wanders about, and sometimes gets attracted to a star enough to do a pass-by.
I guess that's what they're saying. How are we tracking this thing if it's that far away?
How close did it come to the sun?
I don't know.
I'm trying to find that. Less than 186 million miles. So it got within 186 million miles of the sun.
So that was around, close to Earth's orbit, right?
No, I don't. Well, I
don't
think
Earth,
so.
Mars. Okay, according to the thing I'm looking at, it came just on the outside of Mars' orbit.
Okay, I'm just looking up Mars orbital distance. 228. No, that's kilometers.
Damn,
come on,
kilometers.
I know, right?
Yeah, I'm looking at its diagram, and it looks like it came between Jupiter and Mars. Between the asteroid belt and Mars.
Let me just add miles to my Google search.
Well, wait a minute. Are they saying this is where it is now?
So Mars,
it's not even at its closest yet.
Mars orbit is 154 million miles.
And this orbit, would you say the closest it had gotten?
It said 186. So not quite as close as Mars's orbit. So, it might have passed outside of, between Mars and Jupiter, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you say the eccentricity was? 3 point something?
3.36. I don't know what that means, though.
So basically, 0 is a perfectly circular orbit. Anything between 0 and 1 is an elliptical orbit. 1 is a parabolic escape orbit, so it's only going to pass once. And anything greater than 1 is a hyperbolic orbit. So this is a true wandering comet.
Okay.
It came close, closer than Jupiter, not quite as close as Mars, and then it's off to other stars.
Yeah.
According to its, trajectory of momentum and stuff like that.
I think we're talking about this too long.
Okay. But, all of you now know more than you ever wanted to know about orbital eccentricities.
All right, now,
but it's still
Missouri
cool stuff.
has filed yeah, it is cool. Missouri filed a lawsuit against the Chinese government.
Oh, seriously? Okay.
I don't get things
How
like
can
this
you do that?
happen over the epidemic. And that I guess they're lying about it at first, and then the fact that they were hoarding masks.
That China was?
Okay, instead of suing China,
why don't we make
why don't they sue the countries or the companies who sent them to China instead of to us? Like 3M. Didn't 3M do that?
Oh, did they? Especially if they're American companies.
Yeah.
They should be.
They were making a
to
bunch,
us.
and this is after Trump had called this a crisis and had ordered companies to start making them. And they were making them and sending them to China.
Don't do that. If
I remember that story right.
Send the leftovers to China. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Why aren't they suing,
Send
3M
the used ones to China.
How can you sue China, and why can you say that China was wrong? I mean, okay.
Yeah. They're watching out for themselves.
Sure. You would expect them to do that. That's not...
That's what we should be doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's not what we should be doing, but...
No, but...
The whole thing's kind of silly. I wonder if things like that is just like a couple lawyers who want to get famous.
Oh,
for doing something stupid in court.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't know. 7 people killed in some tornadoes.
More tornadoes. Wow.
Yeah.
By the way, I had another opportunity. We talked about tornadoes last time. I had another opportunity to drive by that city, Mooresville.
Yeah.
And I drove all the way around the downtown, and I was right. The tornado touched down in downtown, destroyed it, and left. There was no path.
Tornadoes do weird things.
Yeah.
See, it's not like we live in Tornado Alley, but tornadoes often are around us here in Cincinnati. So we end up talking like if we were from Florida, we'd be talking about hurricanes.
Right.
But, we see a lot of tornadoes. They usually don't hit actually Cincinnati because they don't hit big cities usually. But we see a lot of them. So we talk a lot about them. So Facebook has removed pseudoscience and conspiracy theory as options for targeted ads.
Huh.
It's kind of weird.
So what does that mean? Like if you run a conspiracy theory site, you're not allowed to place ads?
No. If I want to draw people to my website, and I say every time a person types this in, show my ad.
Okay.
I can't use conspiracy theories or pseudoscience as ways to draw people to my website with their ads.
Oh, really? Okay.
That's kind of weird. That's kind of dumb.
That is dumb.
If you're typing in pseudoscience, you probably already know that it's misinformation.
Yeah, I mean, if you're typing in perpetual motion, you're probably trying to do some historical research on people who have tried perpetual motion machines.
Yeah.
That's weird. Okay.
Oh, well. Trump signed over another $310 billion to the Small Business Paycheck Protection Program.
Oh, that's good. That made a lot more. That makes a lot more sense than those. Did you get a check, a so-called stimulus check? Are you going to get one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I didn't get a check. It just
showed up in the bank.
Vicky, we have always lived paycheck to paycheck, and so Vicky goes to the store, she wants to buy something, and she has to, check, do I have enough money to buy this jug of milk?
Right.
And she called me up and she's like, Eric, there's $4,000 in the account. Where did we get $4,000? I thought she was wrong. I had to log in to the bank
check
account.
It out.
I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah, okay.
There's a big old wad of money there.
Hey, did you hear about that guy that had like $2.8 million? He went to do a withdrawal at an ATM and he did a balance check first on the receipt. It said, and he's got the receipt. He had like $2.8 million, but like within a couple of hours, the mistake had been found, and I think like a whole bunch of stimulus checks had gone into his bank account or something.
Did he try to withdraw it or
no? But he saw it and then he called the bank, and by the time by the time they were figuring out, it had already been reversed.
Yeah. Okay. Huh.
But he's got an actual printed receipt that he can show. Yeah, for a couple hours, I was a millionaire.
That'd be awesome. All right, that's it for the news.
Not quite. We got.
Not quite. I got some nonsense news.
I got some nonsense news. This is okay. This is all Corona related. First of all, you know how it's like in nature you have certain things that you don't think about, but like for example, certain animals like scavengers go and eat dead animals, and that's why we don't have a bunch of dead animals around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, apparently tourists clean up beaches from seashells, and so
tourists clean up what?
Beaches. So North Carolina's Outer Banks beaches, which we've been to. You remember we took a vacation down to the Outer Banks? So, well, they've got these seashells all over the beach because people aren't going to the beaches because of the coronavirus. Anyway,
think about that.
They've got some pictures like, wow, I didn't ever realize people, tourists were so important in that regard.
Are you going to do one about the zoos?
No, what about the zoos?
Have you heard about the zoos?
I have not. What about them?
Well, first of all, they're finding that the animals, especially the primates, are kind
lonely,
of...
Lonely,
just
depressed?
They're sad.
Yeah, they're depressed because they rely on... They see all the people... Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And a lot of animals, like, they usually let peacocks and other animals
wander around,
roam free. Yep. And those, especially the birds,
well, we should say something. So, is this zoos in general, or like? Because I know that they do this at the Cincinnati Zoo.
Yeah, it is in general.
Okay, I didn't know.
Most of them do that. They have certain animals,
they
geese, peacocks, things like that just kind of wander around the park.
Right.
But there were certain areas that they wouldn't go because people were always there.
Oh,
well, now they're getting those areas, and the workers have to walk through the park. It's actually become, some zoos are actually hiring their workers to just walk through the park and act like visitors.
To keep the
they
animals
get to these parts where
in their normal habits.
The peacocks and the geese are chasing them because they've decided to take over these areas that people normally are.
They've got a little bit more boldness there.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It's kind of weird.
Okay, so yeah, that's another way that people serve a natural purpose that you don't think about.
Yeah.
All right, so this one is from Oregon, and all right, Oregon is. I still need to do my blog post about my trip to Washington, which right at the beginning of the whole coronavirus thing, I went to Washington, flew back through Seattle.
Oh, that's right.
While I was up there, I visited Oregon. And here's what's funny. So in Oregon, if you, I guess this is a state law, and this is just, shows stupid liberals live out in Oregon, I guess. I don't know. But a state law, and this is like, you might go and just kind of go in order to experience this bizarreness. If you get a bag to put your stuff in, like you go to a store, you buy something, stores are required to charge you for the bags to put stuff in, like grocery bags and stuff like that.
Oh.
No matter how insignificant the bag is. The state requires stores to charge you for grocery bags or bags. Yes, it's a state law. It's like
that's
you go
so weird.
Exactly. I mean, it's you go to the Northwest and it's like, okay, it's the home of Bigfoot and bag charge laws because they're both just as weird, except the bag charge laws are real.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's not the story. The story just shows how the liberals who come up with these laws are also the kinds of liberals who look to government authorities to help them with everything, including wiping their ass. The Oregon police had to send a Facebook message to remind residents, if you run out of toilet paper, don't call 911.
No.
That's the headline.
Did someone call 911 because they ran out of toilet paper?
The Facebook post is, here's the quote, "It's hard to believe that we even have to post this. Do not call 911 just because you ran out of toilet paper," the department told residents in a reminder posted to Facebook last weekend. "You will survive without our assurance. This is liberals. I can't find a way to wipe my butt. Let me call 911.
It's sad that there are people in America who are at that point.
Yeah.
Who really think that the government is there to solve
that
everything.
Kind of problem. Exactly.
That's insane.
But you know what? We did the thing on the toilets last week and about the bidets with the little squirters that squirt the water up and clean you off and stuff. Maybe Oregon's going to have a big surge of,
That would solve the problem with toilet paper.
That's right. And then the toilet paper companies will go out of business because people don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
Which I'm not looking forward to that. I don't want any business to go out of business, but
Do you remember the whole spotted owl fiasco? When the spotted owls, we weren't allowed to log a certain area because the spotted owls would die.
And then they found out the spotted owls were just fine. They'll make their home anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a fiasco, just like you said.
Yeah, I was way back then. I was driving on the highway and I got behind this truck, and it was a logging truck, I think. But the bumper sticker said, "Paper products no longer available. Wipe your ass with a spotted owl."
That's funny.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay, this last one. You saw the movie The Naked Gun, right? Leslie Nielsen?
No, I never saw that.
You never saw that one?
It's not The Naked Gun. It's Naked Gun, isn't it?
I think it's called The Naked Gun. Okay, I'm going to look it up real quick just to make sure.
Yeah, we got to look that up.
Because it had Naked Gun and then Naked Gun 2.5. Yeah, it's called The Naked Gun,
yeah.
1988. Okay,
yeah,
but you never saw that one, huh?
I don't think so.
Okay, anyway.
If I did, it's so long ago that I don't remember it.
So, I wish you had actually seen that because you'd know the reference then. Anyway, so that's how the way. You'll have to go see that then. So, this last one, and this is the last one I have for the night. An Arkansas family creates a hanging blanket for pandemic-friendly hugs. They took a shower curtain and put a couple of arms into the shower curtain, and if you want to hug, you can put on this Corona condom.
Wow.
Corona condom, I'm going to call it, for lack of a better word.
Corona
and then
condoms.
you can hug safely. Okay, instead of practicing safe sex, you can practice safe hugs, I guess, now.
I don't
think it gets any zanier than that. Would have known.
See, here's the thing. You know me. I am the king of social distancing.
Yeah, I mean, you're not...
Me and Dale... Me and Dale were talking about it last night, or not the other night, and I can actually count on one hand the number of people I have hugged in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how seldom I touch people. I just don't like to be touched.
Yeah.
But
No,
this whole thing is so bizarre.
Yeah.
The way people have, it's just weird. I would call this a phenomenon.
Yeah, I think it is. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Yeah, it's like,
and I don't know if this is if it's just born out of fear or if there's something else weird about it that, like, maybe this is a part of the development of the cultural move to social websites.
Oh, like where people get all of
like
their
everybody
social...
got addicted to Facebook.
It's like all of their relationship
instead of talking to each other
is on Facebook instead of interpersonal.
We film things.
Yeah,
it's like if you go meet a famous person, instead of talking to that person, you film it. Instead of living in the moment, you record it.
Yeah,
and maybe this is like the next step.
Almost like an evolutionary thing.
Right. This, like, maybe it was going to happen anyway, even without this coronavirus. Maybe another virus was going to, maybe it would have had, people would have started doing the same thing with the flu or something. I don't know. It's, I don't think it's healthy, though.
It's weird
I'm allowed to social distance, but other people shouldn't.
Well, the thing is, it's like, you should be the oddball for doing that. And up until,
I was always the weirdo because I wouldn't touch anyone. Everybody talked about how weird Eric is. He doesn't like touching people. Yeah, just stay away from Eric.
Exactly.
But now everybody's doing that.
Yeah, you know that.
I don't like it one bit.
No, it's
that's my thing.
It's not only,
and I want it to stay my thing.
Yeah, it is. It's bizarre, and it's definitely not healthy.
Yeah. All right, is that all we got?
That is all I've got.
All right, guys. Well, think about what we said.
And circle the beads.
And circle the beads. Keep praying. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.